We're going to get started. So, greetings, everyone, on behalf of myself, Peggy Vale, and Faye Ginsberg. I don't know if she's here yet, from the Center for Media, Culture, and History, and our colleagues over here at CLACS, at the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies, especially thanks to Jill Lane, Amalia Cordova, and Omar Duhar, who has a difficult name for me to pronounce. We're really excited to be in collaboration here with UnionDocs Center for Documentary Art in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, to present our evening's event tonight of Living Los Sores. I also want to thank Latino Studies and the Department of Cinema Studies for their co-sponsorship on this event. And Jacqueline Hazen right over there for filming. We usually make our discussions, not the films themselves, but discussions available online on Vimeo through our, you can get access to that through our website, cmch.org, for the Center for Media, Culture, and History. And I believe you'll have it on your website as well. So we're going to begin. We have a bit of a tight schedule, so I'm going to go kind of quickly. So we will start with our screening of Los Sores, the 1984 groundbreaking film by Diego Echeverria that chronicles Latino lives in a pre-gentrified Williamsburg neighborhood. How many people here are familiar with Williamsburg, Brooklyn? Okay, oh, a lot, okay. Probably a lot of people live there right now, too. The film was originally broadcast on PBS, and it has been lovingly restored through UnionDocs and New York Public Library. And so we're happy to see this restored version. And after that, we have a lot of other stuff to talk about, but I want to give you just a little background on the neighborhood at that time. The Latino South Side, or Los Sures, in the south area of Williamsburg, was primarily a Puerto Rican and Dominican community at the time in the 1970s and early 1980s when this was being filmed. And it was a time when the city, this particular neighborhood, this area in the neighborhood was among the poorest, if not the poorest in the city, according to many sources, and if not also one of the poorest in the entire country. So this was a very challenged neighborhood. This is an important document and chronicle of this time period. Because just fast forward a little, sometime later, and mass gentrification happened, as many of you are aware of, in the 1990s, especially in 2000s, and rezoning that happened, which really brought in a dramatic change in the demographics of the neighborhood. So between even the years 2000 to 2010, 25% of the Latino population in the south side and north side of Williamsburg either moved out or were displaced with higher rents and other reasons. That's a huge demographic change. So, I feel like just to give a little bit of context and why this film is actually such an important document of the community at that time period because of these changing demographics. And I actually, was one of the gentrifiers, I guess. I moved into the neighborhood myself in 1987, so among the first wave of artists to move into Williamsburg. Right into the heart of Los Sures. So this film also resonates. It was just 3 years after the film was made. It resonates very deeply for me as well. After the screening, we'll have UnionDocs Artistic Executive Director Christopher Allen, who's with us here. He's going to be coming up and talking about the current project, Living Los Sures, that he'll show some clips, I believe, from the shorts that were done in their collaborative studio at UnionDocs, and there'll be some discussion about the online interactive expanded documentary project that this 1984 film inspired. So we're really excited. Also, after that, we're going to have a discussion that's moderated. We're very, very happy to have with us and fortunate to have with us tonight Cynthia Lopez, who is the former commissioner of the mayor's office, New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. She's also a Puerto Rican New Yorker herself. And then we'll be joined in discussions with Cynthia and Christopher by Melvin Estrella, who grew up in Los Sures and also knew a number of people that are in the documentary and now working with UnionDocs on the distribution of the film. So let's take a look at the film, and then afterwards we'll start with the next part of the program. Christopher Allen is here next to me. He's going to be switching some stuff up on the computer, but while he does, I just wanted to read his bio to you so you have a little more background on Christopher. He's as I said, the Executive Artistic Director of UnionDocs. He's also the founder. After graduating from Columbia University and studying at Trinity College in Dublin, Christopher worked as a social entrepreneur, a documentary director, and new media artist. His individual works and collaborative projects have been exhibited at MoMA, at Harvard's Carpenter Center for Visual Arts, in Berlin at numerous locations and festivals such as Independent Film Week and Sonar. He directed the interactive documentary Capital of Punk, which is a great name, which was the part of the design and the Elastic Mind at MoMA. Christopher was also the founding director of Counts Media and played a leading role in the invention and execution of many art and entertainment concepts there, such as The Ride New York, which was a live theatrical and cinematic experience on the streets of New York City. And Yellow Arrow, a place-based storytelling project exhibited online and in galleries and museums internationally. So let's welcome Christopher. He's going to tell you about the project Living Losuras.
Thanks so much, Peggy. See if I can stretch here. Maybe I'll take this off. That'll work. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of this project. We've called it an expansive documentary project, which basically means it's big. So it's kind of hard to show in 10 minutes, but I'll do my best to give you a taste of it here. First, just going to show you a short that was made by fellows in our collaborative studio, just about a minute of that. The film is called Of Memory and Losuras.
I was born in Williamsburg section of Brooklyn, New York.
You know, South 2nd, South 3rd.
South 1st, South 2nd, South 3rd.
South 4th.
First, South 2nd, South 3rd.
South 2nd, South 3rd, like that, you know, the names of the street.
That's why they call it Los Sudas.
If you're in Brooklyn and people ask you where you're from and you're Latino, you would say Los Sudas, and they would know exactly where you're from. Soy de Los Sudas, Los Sudas, Los Sudas, Los Sudas, Los Sudas.
What is the South Side?
Yes, it was a big community of immigrants.
It was a really vibrant, interesting neighborhood, mostly Puerto Rican.
For anybody to say Los Sudas now is weird.
I believe it's a fading term. I mean, it's safe to say that.
So this film was made by Lori Sumi and Andrew Parsons. Andrew came from more of a radio background and had sort of an oral historian, and Lori was an illustrator. And this is one of the first projects that was made for Living Losuras back in 2010. So we've been working for about 5 years on this project. Very brief geography here. That is how Williamsburg is divided up. So you see the bridge down there, and so that's the section that we're talking about, Losuras. It is not only kind of divided very much ethnically over its history and still today, it's also divided within the neighborhood of Losuras itself by the BQE. So you have, and I think you may recall in the film, people saying this side and the other side, and that's basically referring to this side and the other side of the BQE. And UnionDocs, my organization, sits right on the boundary of East Williamsburg and Losuras. And we've been there since 2003. And this is our space. We just put a mural up on the building. I don't know if you can recognize him from the film, but that's Cuso, actually, on the building. And we've got his motto up there. Having reconnected to Cuso, we were able to do a project as part of Living Losuras that put this mural up, and worked with a local artist named Jose Luis Medina to create this comic book, which is on the sort of stripe there at the bottom of the mural, and it tells a bit broader history of Cuso's life beyond sort of his role in the film Losuras. And it's nice, we get to see a lot of people stopping outside our space. I'll speak a little bit more maybe about what the organization does, but in terms of Living Losuras, these are the relevant hashtags and websites. In 2007, we initially got a VHS of this film from the filmmakers Pamela Yates and Paco Dionís of Skylight Pictures. We have a small cinema in our in that building that I just showed you, and we had shown their film State of Fear, and they said, hey, you know, there's a film about the neighborhood. They actually live right around the block from UnionDocs, and they said, there's a film about this neighborhood. Have you ever heard of that? And we hadn't, and we're very excited to learn about it, and so watched it and were blown away, and quickly organized a screening and connected to the director. The director's name is Diego Echeverria. There he is. Winnie made the film in 1984 and every bit as handsome today. It was quite a shock for Diego to find that, first of all, that we had sort of connected to this film, and then that we had done so much work with it. And let Diego speak briefly here. Wish he could speak to you. He's incredibly charming and articulate man. But
it was a very important moment for me to have gone and meet that community 30 years ago. But imagine what it is as you come back after such a long period of time. Well, that's a huge gift.
Councilwoman Reina has a special proclamation from the city to present to Diego.
This documentary is now our living proof. And we need to share this message amongst so many others outside of this room. Thank you.
So it's been incredible to work with Diego. This is actually a picture from the production of Marta and her family. And one of the other joys of this project has been reconnecting to most of the protagonists from the film. Marta, were actually able to make a longer piece with, which I'll show you a glimpse of. And just a brief anecdote, when we were trying to find Marta, we went first to sort of all the sort of organizations in the neighborhood and, you know, tried to find official routes to meet her, and wasn't really getting anywhere. We were kind of frustrated. And after about, 10 months of doing that, we finally just put her picture from the film on a piece of paper and went to literally the bodega across the street from UnionDocs, starting our search. And that was the first place we went and said, have you ever met this woman? They're like, oh, Marta, she's South 3rd Street. She was literally 4 minutes away from UnionDocs. And the next day, once we got the courage up, we went and rang her bell, and she was incredibly welcoming. The film premiered at the New York Film Festival. It had critical praise, but after that, it was, in many ways and for practical purposes, kind of lost. And we were able to, with the New York Public Library, actually make the restoration of the film, having sort of shown it around the neighborhood and started to use it as a spine for this much bigger project. We got the resources together to make that happen. Which is why we're able to show the film today. So.
What do you do with that original print? It's sacred because it's the only thing remaining, but it's worthless if no one sees it. We're not creating a time capsule, so you have to be both a guardian and be very accepting of the things that happen to film prints when they're watched. Personally, I would rather put it on the projector in Los Sures where people can talk about, oh, that screening we had in the park, and have the film live on that way than have the physical item sitting on a shelf somewhere.
I wanted to make sure to play that because I think some of you are meeting Elena later, and so she loves that clip. She's a very special person. Was really the sort of the detective that hunted down where the right thing to make the new copy of the film was, and it was very hard to find. In fact, it actually was the copy that the New York Public Library had. Everywhere else in all the libraries, the 60mm prints had become quite red and destroyed. But at the same time as having this incredible conservation effort, she was also very, very interested in getting the film seen, and so she was liberal enough to get it out there and get it. Let us do it in screenings in church basements, in marketplaces, out in parks, and that was a big part of this project. So, okay, so what is the project actually? Well, we have produced over almost 40 short documentaries about the neighborhood today with fellows in the collaborative studio, and I'm going to show you the website briefly here. Let's turn the mirror around. So the project is, in addition to the restoration of the original film, it is 3 other parts. There's these short documentaries, of which there are 40. There's a project called 89 Steps, which is an update of Marta's story told in an interactive format. And there's Shot by Shot. And I'll just give you a really brief taste of each of those. All of the shorts are on the website, like Of Memory and Los Sures, which I showed you just a little excerpt of, and the information there. And most of them are streaming, and all of them by the end of the year will be streaming. If you click this little drop down, you can see all the films. And these were made by as collaborations with fellows in our studio, Over 60 artists worked on these films over the course of the past 5 years. They're not, I say films, but I probably shouldn't because they're not all films. They're a variety of different approaches to documentary art. So South Side Stories, for instance, is an audio walk that takes you from Bedford, the Bedford subway stop, to on a 45-minute journey through the neighborhood, and you hear stories told by residents over that time. And one of the other 40 that I'll point out is a great film called Third Shift, which won the Best Short Documentary at the Brooklyn Film Festival, and is a really nice film that shows you the interior of the now destroyed or torn down Domino Sugar Factory, and it has two individuals who worked the night shift, the sort of third shift, and talks a bit about both their dreams while they were working at the factory and their present. They revisit the space today. So yeah, a variety of different angles on the neighborhood today, looking at different stories and also in different aesthetics of documentary. Another thing that happened quite a lot when we showed this film around the neighborhood was that incredible stories would come to us from long-standing community residents, and they would tell us so much about what was in the film. And so we wanted to find a way to sort of collect these stories and to extend them and sort of extend the film in a different way, and kind of literally splice in the stories of the community. And we did that through this project, Shot by Shot. I'll show you a section of it here. So I don't know if you remember this shot. It's actually the 10th shot of the film.
Los Sures are tough. If you can survive Los Sures, you can survive anything. And Los Sures is love.
So I think that's an amazing moment in the film, not just for the text, but also for this incredible action of the handoff that happens here between two buildings and 3 floors, and is just incredibly graceful and choreographed, and the camera just works perfectly on it. So very curious about this moment. Spoke to Ricardo about it, and he was like, "Oh, hey, that's Donna Rosa," and he said that's her elevator. And then we spoke to Tina, and Tina was like, "Oh yeah, that happened all the time. Come on. We used to pass a bag, and that's how my mom would give me the keys, and she wouldn't trust me to take the keys because I'd lose them when I was a kid. But actually, doors were generally not that often locked, until later in the 80s." And then Edda pointed out that why this is happening. It's happening because these buildings are walk-ups, and nobody's going to make a small delivery going down 6 flights of stairs and back up. And then Ray, who's helped us a lot on this project, said that it reminded him of back in Puerto Rico in San Juan, where his father has a 10-story building and there's a grocery store on the first floor, and that's how people place their orders. They drop a basket down and it gets filled with a list, and I really wish they had that in my building. So that's just shot 10. There are 326 shots in the film, and we have layered stories from right now about 60 different community members in this fashion. I won't be able to show you many more, but you can check it out online. We've also mapped all the exterior shots, and some of them include criticism of the film. Some of them literally also deconstructed. I'm going to share one tiny one with you. This one I like a lot. You remember this overhead shot here of the breakdancing, and then it cuts to these beautiful women with the pillow looking out the window, and back to here. So zooming in on them, classic reaction shot, but David Lopez would tell us otherwise. He says, this is an editing trick. Come on, those people are on South 2nd. They're nowhere near the breakdancers. That's just a cutaway that they put in the editing room. It's not totally impossible. And then, the rest of these go on to talk about sort of street theater and what it was, what is much better than television is just, hanging out on the street and watching and connecting to your neighbors, and the ways these women did that. So many different stories kind of combined in here, and we hope to continue this. We've also mapped every exterior location so we know where they were shot, and we've used Google Street View to sort of do a comparison to the image today. So that's shot by shot, and then the last piece that I wanted to show you was just a section of 89 Steps. 89 Steps is an interactive web doc on Marta's story, and I'll just show you the first chapter. You can do it at home if you're interested.
30 years ago, they started filming in September with 5 people that live in the borough of Brooklyn, I being one of them.
Mom, we gotta have this. We have to get their morning phone.
The neighborhood was tough at that time. Not easy at all. You see me with my 4 daughters. But I did have a son. I did have a son. I can tell a story or two about anything to anybody that wants to hear it.
So we broke Marta's sort of current story into 9 chapters and in 2 parts. And the street is the first part where you're given the sort of mission to find Marta. I'll just give you a brief idea of that.
This block here is called South 3rd Street. This area itself is called Los.
So as you move down the street, Marta sort of plays a little bit of a game of hide and seek with you. But eventually you find her, and when you do, she invites you into the house, into her apartment. Maybe I shouldn't have jumped. In any case, you can check that out at home. The stairs are where it gets pretty interesting.
30 years ago.
And you get her whole story as she basically is facing crisis of leaving the neighborhood after living there for 40 years, and we follow her as she goes through that process. So that's a bit of that. We've done quite a number of events with Los Sures, screened at BAM this summer. We do have a DVD that is now in the NYU's library and is going to universities before a home release. And we've done a lot of work in the community. This was a great event we had this summer. And we will, I'll skip this, and we'll be screening at Metrograph, the new cinema on Ludlow. This film will be shown for a week in April. So tell your friends, because we'd love to share this with more people. So I think that's it.
Thanks, Christopher. It's such an incredible, multifaceted media project about culture's time and place that should be replicated by other organizations, I feel like. Really incredible project. So I'm going to bring up now Melvin Estrella is going to join us. He is somewhere, he was right here. Oh, there he is. He is working on Los Sures distribution, but also grew up in the neighborhood. He's a documentary filmmaker and also happens to be my husband. And we met in the neighborhood 23 years ago in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And then as moderating for the discussion, before we open up to the audience, is Cynthia Lopez, who, as I mentioned, is the former commissioner of the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, where she was the steward of the Office of Film, Theater, and Broadcasting. Just a little bit more background on Cynthia. She implemented strategies during this time as the commissioner to support production in film and TV throughout the 5 boroughs, and oversaw New York City's media, oversaw New York City Media, the city's official TV, radio, and online network. During her tenure, TV production and feature film production rose substantially, up 21%, which with revenue going directly into the local economy. She joined the City of New York from American Documentary, POV, as many of you are probably aware, serving as the Executive Vice President, Co-Executive Producer of the award-winning PBS documentary series. Lopez is the founding chairperson of the Board of Directors for the National Association of Latino Independent Producers, NALIP. She was also named People in Español's 25 Most Powerful Women. The Imagine Foundation's 20 Most Influential Latinos in Entertainment in both 2013 and 14, and Variety's Top 50 New York Entertainment Elite. She is the recipient of 11 National News and Documentary Emmy Awards, among many other things. Cynthia Lopez.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, congratulations, Christopher. I have to say. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Because we're filming, we're gonna, even with the Q&A, we'll be using a mic.
Okay. Well, congratulations, Christopher. I have to say, when Melvin first talked to me about this project, I was unaware of this film. And I mentioned to Peggy, I watched the film and I started crying. I don't know how you all felt. This is my second version of the film. And I said, gosh, when I grew up, truth be told, and I said this to Melvin, my family is from Sunset Park, Brooklyn. And my dad was an elevator mechanic, and we weren't allowed to go to Los Sures. That was a place that was really tough, that some people were afraid of, because it was a neighborhood that was stricken with many, many difficulties. So one, I want to say congratulations, Christopher, because it is not easy to preserve anything sometimes, right? But cultural preservation, film preservation, oral history, that's like an uphill battle. So thank you, because this is an amazing project. Wanted to ask you first, when you first saw the film, what did you think? And how different was it from what you saw? Because it was sitting on a shelf for so many years.
Yeah, I was watching it on that VHS for the first time, and actually the first screenings that we had with it, that was the only copy that we knew was available. So it did not look at all as rich as what you just saw. But even with that, I was completely taken by the film. Not simply because it provided this incredible window into the history of the neighborhood. You know, I've been at the time in Williamsburg since the early 2000s, and had felt this. Not only was there a lot of segregation in the neighborhood across different streets, and you could feel that history. You definitely felt a very strong segregation between sort of newer residents in the neighborhood and longer-standing community members. And so this felt like there was a way to experience that history. And the history of Los Sures, you can't really find it in a book. You can't. It's not really written. We found a few references, but there's not much out there. So it was incredible. But beyond sort of that local and personal connection, I just thought it was an incredible piece of cinema on its own terms.
Now, Melvin, you are from the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about when you saw this film for the first time, and what were your thoughts about it?
Well, I came into the neighborhood in 1969. So I got to see not only what the filmmaker saw, I got to see a lot more. And it was really a pretty scary environment. And but at the same time, there were amazing people, wonderful people, well-educated people, and it was a vibrant neighborhood in its own way. So when I saw the film, I was like, finally, I got to see somebody representing my period of living there, my enjoyment of the things I did. I like dancing in the street. I like playing in the fire hydrant. I did all of those things. Those are things you did. They may seem foreign to some people, but that was the way you socialized. That was the way you carried on, and I thought it was amazing seeing it in the film.
Each of the characters really, to me, say some extremely thought-provoking comments and gut-wrenching comments. I have to say, when Tito first says, I have to be out there, I have to look for money, money is not going to walk up and look for me. There's many, each of the characters says something really poignant. How do you see, what is the interaction like when you mention that you see still a little bit of a division between the folks who have come in and gentrified the neighborhood, if you will? I have to say, a couple of friends of mine invited me probably like 6 years or 7 years ago, and they said, you want to come to Los Sures? And that for me was like, Wait a second, you know what I mean? And I said, why? And she says, it's completely different. And when I went to the neighborhood, it had transformed, right? So how do you see the current division, or how do you perceive what we see in 1986 or 84? In 1984 to where it is now?
Well, there's no doubt that it's drastically changed, and Peggy pointed out earlier some of the demographic shifts that have happened, but I would say that there's still a very, very strong community in this neighborhood, and it's very disheartening for me actually to see how little sort of mainstream media, not to pick on the New York Times or anything like that, but you see just like a complete invisibility towards that neighborhood. And as soon as you get off the main streets in the South Side, it's not just a hipster playground. That Los Suros is still very much alive, and for us that was why we used the term living Los Suros, because it was not about sort of just putting something in a museum, or it was about appreciating the culture that's thriving there today. And it's struggling for sure, but I think our council member is doing a lot of work right now to make sure that people aren't pushed out unfairly, and to make sure that the institutions that came out of this neighborhood, there's like unbelievable organizations that were born, many of them born at the time of this film, that have really created the fabric of that community. From childcare to youth arts to housing, and all of those organizations are models for around the country and are still very much there. So I think you look at it and you can say on the surface level, like, yeah, businesses, main streets, obviously there's been major changes there, but I think the heart of the community is still very much connected to what you see in the film.
Now, Melvin, who of all the characters that you see in this film, who was your favorite, or who did you relate to the most?
I think Martha's family, because I knew the kids.
Oh, okay.
I knew all of them, and they used to hang out right across the street from me because they have friends across the street. So we were friends. And also because they were a family of 5 kids, 1 mother. But in my case, we were 10 and 2 parents. So we knew what it was to struggle. We knew how difficult things were. But at the same time, which is the only area I have to say about the film that I wish it had a little more of that positive thing, because we, as a family, we didn't rob, we didn't do drugs, we didn't do any of the things that we saw being done in the neighborhood. So it would have been nice to see that, but as a document, there's nothing like it. And it gives me insight into people who I knew. I mean, I knew they lived that way, and the depictions are very true of the way they live. So that was the only conflict I had with the film, but at the same time, I'm very, very comfortable to say that we need to share this film and let other people know about this film, because there's so little of that time captured by anybody. Yeah.
Now, Christopher, what made you decide to move to Los Suros? And of all the buildings you can pick, what made you decide to do UnionDocs there?
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for this, but it is complete luck and just happenstance. I was meant to move into that building for 1 month, and it's almost 12 years later, and I have this insane relationship with this place, and it just kind of unfolded like that. But I guess what I can say to that is that it was a very welcoming neighborhood. Even though I think there were divisions, like my immediate neighbors were very friendly. It was a permissive place also, where when I moved in, there was still a lot of energy on the streets, and
energy on the streets. I like the way you say that.
Yeah. I mean, and so I always felt very comfortable there. It was interesting because in a lot of the arts organizations that did start up in the same period that we were on the other side, as they say, and that the BQE did create kind of a psychological barrier for many people. So to come to us, did feel like you were wandering a bit beyond. But now we are sort of central in a way. So.
Now, just in terms of the digital site, the interactive site, I have to say I spent like 3 hours today and 2 hours yesterday, and whenever I do a speaking engagement, I prepare, and I was just like, how much did this thing cost? Because it's very robust. The quality of each of the pieces is so thoughtful, and then I kept on saying, I'm going to tell someone that's very meaningful in my life who wants me to move, and I keep saying, New York is my place. Like, this is where I'm from. I'm born and raised in New York City, and I've gone to 68 countries in my lifetime, and yet every time I come home, there's no place like it. And this site is an example of all the stories in a couple of blocks in Brooklyn. So tell me, how much does that cost? I want to do that in Jackson Heights, but I was like, how much does this thing cost? It's like $3 million?
If it helps to keep you here, no cost could be too much. I can't say exactly, because it's really so much of an in-kind effort. So the way that the short films have been made, as I briefly mentioned, was through our collaborative studio, which is a group of artists that we bring in each year. There's 12 of them, 6 are from New York and 6 are international, and we work with them over the course of 10 months to produce short films and also to kind of engage in master classes and seminars on the history and theory and practice of documentary art. And sort of through that laboratory environment, we've been able to make films, and we do it on a completely shoestring basis. So the films really didn't have any budget. They have gone all over the world and won awards, and also are streaming online. And
for the filmmakers in here, it's like, whoa.
We are able to provide the sort of basics. Within the collaborative, we provide the basics that are necessary for production, and we also create a sort of temporary commons where the artists that are involved can exchange sort of their labor for each other. And I might be the editor for your project, and you might be a producer for somebody else's project, and through that collaboration, it all kind of balances out. But the interactive piece does cost some money and time, and we were very lucky to find some programmers who believed in the cause and were willing to do it for a fraction of the price. We did get support on this from the NEA. Was an earlier supporter, and that helped us a good bit. And then since we sort of demonstrated the project and people could see it, we've been able to get more support for the distribution and for additions to the website. So.
Now, Melvin, I know that you're working with UnionDocs around the distribution of the film and also of the interactive site. What are the plans to come? What should the audience know about what's going to happen?
Oh, great, thanks. Right now we're going to be reaching out to universities, colleges all across the United States with the film, and the DVD includes all of the interactive parts that were mentioned here, which makes it available for people for schools to have it available to their students. Plus, we hope to using the screening at Metrograph coming up soon in April 15th through the 21st, which we hope you tell your friends and your fellow students.
Got it there.
And so on. Yes. It's right. Oh, see, there he goes. That you tweet and that you Facebook and let them know that this film is available. What that will do is then create an environment for people to write about it. Right now we have a lot of writers from magazines that are considering writing about it, but the more they hear about this, it's going to be great. But at the same time, we are seeking scholars who want to write a review about the film, which is really, really important for us because we need for them to go into journals, university journals, because then it becomes a real teaching tool. And that's another reason why we need support from university scholars. But at the same time, being part of this UnionDocs project, it makes me feel completely, extremely happy, because not only I know the people in the film, but I'm also helping to promote the film and to do it in a way that I believe this is a very, very honest film, and I love that about it. So I would hope that I can even do more, you know. Yeah.
Now, if a university wants to, request the film, what should they do?
Basically, you go to the website, and there is a section for reaching out to UnionDocs, and you could just order it there. Yeah.
Now, could one of you tell me more about Diego? I wish I could have the opportunity to meet him, and I will make sure to figure out how to do that. But tell us more about him.
So he'll be at the Saturday screening for the first screening I think the second screening at the Metrograph, and he has been a huge support of the project. This was the only film that Diego made, actually. So he had been a journalist and worked for NBC, and actually was one of the few Latino journalists working for NBC at the time, and was given this opportunity through WNET, actually. And David Loxton there was the producer who offered him a significant sum of money to make this film, actually. Documentary makers of this era would be jealous of where he was at, what he was just sort of handed at that moment. And he had the luxury to kind of go and work with a real 16mm crew and doing the amazing work that he did. But after that, he had 2 kids, and he was sort of wondering with this whole documentary business, is this really going to work out? He went on to work for the UN and did some incredible media work all across Latin America, looking at a variety of different initiatives, producing basically media for the UN. And then went on to have actually kind of an early interactive media company. It was more connected to children's television, and I'm forgetting the name of the TV show, but it was a very popular TV show in Latin America for kids, and he created a kind of a whole DVD-ROM package CD-ROM kind of thing. And so when we started talking to him about some of this interactive stuff, he was totally on board, totally got it, and was like, yes, this is the future of documentary, and he was so into it. So yeah, he's been incredibly supportive the entire time. We have been lucky enough to be able to bring him up at least once a year to work with the fellows in our program and to engage the public as often as possible, and it's always a big pleasure when he's there. So.
Anything else, Melvin, that before we open it up to questions, just in terms of the cultural vibe? I love when, I think earlier, Christopher, you referred to this being sort of street theater. I have to say, walking here, I was looking at Washington Square Park, and I kept on thinking, I guess it's cold. But years ago, this to me was like 27 performers inside Washington Park. And I walked through, and there wasn't one person standing today out there. And I said, "Oh, it must be cold," But to me, certain neighborhoods have a certain cadence to how they move during the day, a rhythm. What's the rhythm like now in Los Sures?
Well, if you like coffee, it's great. If you like bars, it's great. And if you like going for dinner, it's great. There is no interaction, in my opinion, as much as it was before, in particular with older people, which is really sad, because older people are filled with stories, filled with these amazing wealth of information, and many younger people just don't touch them, don't come close to them. And when I have conversations with them, they'll say, "You're the first person I've seen in weeks, or that I've had a conversation with on the street," which is really sad. And one of the things that I like about UnionDocs is that they've brought people together in the parks and around different events they've done, where you bring community folks and people who are gentrifiers to come in and hang. And I thought that was really, really wonderful. So that's really positive, yeah.
You sound like a tribe, the gentrifiers.
The gentrifiers, yeah. What I was going to say, which is kind of funny, is in 1969, when I first arrived in the United States, one of the first things my older brother said that we should go do was to go into Manhattan because there was nothing to see in Williamsburg, and they said we should go to Washington Square Park to see the hippies. That's a Dominican interesting thing to do. You know, first thing you want to do is go see the hippies.
In terms of your favorite scene, while you still have the mic, what was your favorite scene in the film?
There were so many moments that I know. I know those buildings. I knew those streets. I knew the people. I knew people in the background that were. I had conversations with them, and it was a lot. I can't say one because it was so many. Yeah, yeah.
Well, Christopher, what was your? Do you have one favorite scene?
No, it's 326 shots in the film, and you know, watching the film now is like kind of a psychedelic experience because of all the stories that have been told to me. So I didn't experience that time, but I know so much about it. So it just washes over me in a crazy way. There's so many references, and I think that's what's been amazing about working with the community, and it sort of speaks to Melvin's point about sort of lacking conversation, lacking the ability to kind of talk intergenerationally, was just slowing things down and looking at a single shot, and then having that shot as a point of conversation opened up dialogue with for all of the staff at UnionDocs as well as the fellows that are there. To people in the community, so that we could get into the details and also understand that history, and there's so much there. But I really particularly love, as much as I love the narratives of each of the five main protagonists, I really love the sort of city symphony moments that are in between each of those scenes. They're so graceful and show so much about the sort of culture of the neighborhood, and where there is the stories are tough many times. You see the resilience and the energy and the life of the place, and it's a lot of people who've seen this film are really, really moved by that, and I think it moves me too. So.
Well, I do have two favorite scenes, I have to say. I always say the best documentary is a documentary that has some kind of cacophony that happens in a moment. And I don't know if you guys remember the scene where there's a yellow sofa and he's up close, and the husband doesn't want to listen to the wife. And you see she's talking, and he's like,
he's got great shoes on.
Exactly,
too.
and he has the best shoes on. And to me, I was like, wow, that is New York. And in Puerto Rican community, it's the male and the macho, and you could see that he's just being so restrained because she is the one that handles stuff. The other scene that I thought was fabulous was when Tito is walking in jail, and he's walking away, and you see how little he is.
It's such a reveal.
Throughout the whole movie, I thought, oh my God, he's this gangster that's huge and
oversized
he's got
personality.
big hair, and his hair is curly, and he's got the bandana. And then when you see him next to the police officer walking away in the jail, those have to be my two favorite scenes. Just in terms of the power of cinema to communicate life in a way that's extraordinary. So we have a couple of minutes. We have 14 minutes if I do this well. Questions? We'll start back there, and Faye will come back to you. Back there? Please stand up.
Well, how you doing? My name is Ariel. I'm actually Melvin's nephew. What's up, Peg? The part that blew my mind was Diego in the beginning saying, I gotta get money. And I still live in the neighborhood. My family still live there. I live in Miami. I live all over the place. And the thing that blew my mind is what he said. And to this day, even though the neighborhood might be, hipstered out and restaurants, it's still going on. It's still drugs being sold. I know because I got, I know people. And to this day,
I know people.
I'm walking down the street and seeing some kid that I know because I'm really into the hip hop community. I'm a breakdancer, DJ, And we used to teach, me and my crew brought all these programs inside the Fuente Community Center later on. And then on, they all became teachers. So, and we taught these kids, but half of these kids fell into the light. So, because of whatever happened. And what he said still goes on to this day. It kind of blows my mind. No matter what's going on, no matter how many people are still sipping coffee and drinking their life away on the bar, whatever's going on, all this stuff still goes on. And it is amazing which goes on into the neighborhood, how it's gentrified. But at the same time, like, these small little things are still there. And
Absolutely.
it still blows my mind what goes on in the Spanish Latino community. And then it goes on in Harlem, it goes on here and there. And then you find out that all this stuff is going on, but it goes on in Rockaway Beach. Like, now it's growing to Rockaway Beach and it's going to Harlem. So I have to say, like, that documentary really kind of blew my mind because I actually know a couple of people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, it's kind of crazy, like, wow. But what I have to say is that, like, even those things that's going on in the neighborhoods itself, a lot of stuff still goes on. The community's still there.
Thank
The
you.
culture's still there. And the bad things still happen because those kids' parents and their grandparents are still there. Like, I see them all the time, so it's kind of crazy.
Thank you for that comment. 'Cause I think it's very true. Faye?
Yeah, thanks very much for the program. It's great. Yeah, sure. So I have two questions. One is the level of intimacy and trust in the film is extraordinary. It's why it's so compelling and the characters are incredible. So I'm just wondering if you have any knowledge of how Diego achieved that and what his process was and if people remembered him when he came back and what that was. So that's one. And two, it seems like I mean, how do you feel this has affected UnionDocs? Because it could have UnionDocs could be just like another kind of hipster, screening scene plopped down in the middle of that neighborhood, and the opportunity afforded UnionDocs as an organization to do that is really kind of amazing. So I'm just wondering if you could comment a little bit about whether it's actually had kind of enduring effects in weaving UnionDocs into the neighborhood as you kind of obviously wanted to do, if that's actually happened sort of beyond the project itself.
Sure, great questions. Well, what I've heard, as I've heard Diego describe it, the way he found the characters was through hanging out in the neighborhood. He spent a lot of time just being on the streets and meeting people, and kind of to your favorite scene with Tito there. His joke was that he just picked the smallest people in the neighborhood to be the main characters, because there's all of the characters when you see them off the screen are actually quite small, but their personalities are huge, really huge. And I, having had the pleasure to meet Marta, Evelyn, as well as Cuso and Tito's sister, though Tito's been a bit shy and didn't want to be a part of the project at this point. But having met those people, I can say that they are so honest and such amazing storytellers that Diego just made the perfect choice. They offer so much, and in a way almost to the point where they may be manipulating reality a little bit. When we worked with Marta on 89 Steps, I was shooting a scene for her going to the airport early, and I realized that she had left her. She was perfectly made up, but she had left her bed unmade so that she would have some business to do while I was there. Everything was done except for the bed making, and she wanted me to film her doing the bed making. So I would say it's very much a collaboration with the subjects, and that he picked very creative and brilliant people to work with. Because in that scene with Tito when he's in the bed, for instance, there are lights there. There is a cameraman. There is a sound crew there. It is, it's a big production. So. That'd be what I say. The first question. In terms of the second question, we hoped through Living Los Sures to alter what UnionDocs is and was, and what the way that an arts organization could relate to its community, and it, I think it has been totally transformative. We went first to sort of long-standing organizations like you mentioned, El Puente. Were big supporters of this project throughout, and St. Nick's and Los Sures HDFC, the housing organization, and many others were inroads. And and I think initially when we started the project, there was some skepticism, and rightly so, because so who are we to kind of be involved in telling the history of this? But we are tight with these people now, and we are involved. Like, we filmed El Puente's Three Kings Day celebration, and when they, we're working with them on a curriculum to use Los Sures and all the work for living Los Sures as sort of media for what will be a pilot after-school program for high schoolers, and then eventually it will hopefully become an elective in the high school that's sort of both speaking to the history of the place, but also to sort of media literacy and documentary skills. So we've become really, really connected, and then with local politicians or the housing activists, like, because some of the stories that we've told that I didn't share with you were about that. They're using those in their advocacy, and give us a shout when something's happening and want it. We're almost too integrated in the neighborhood, because there's a lot of jobs coming up. But it's all good stuff. Yeah.
Some questions here.
Yeah, I wondered, what can you tell us about the lives of Black people now? Are you able to talk about it?
Oh, the online site.
Yeah, a lot of it is in shot by shot. I can say that they're all doing really well, as far as
Are they all alive?
No, Maria's not around anymore. I think she was the oldest in the film, and I believe she passed away in the mid-2000s. But Kuso is still in the neighborhood, still in the same building. He has 27 great-grandchildren, and is amazing. And there's a whole narrative that's part of that comic that we did of sort of his wider story, which is really rich. And he's said he will he wants to die in Los Sures, and that for his son to take over his apartment and stay there forever. And
is Tito out of jail?
Tito was out of jail. I think after he left, and he never went back, as far as his sister said, and he's a super in Sunset Park, actually, and seems to be doing well. I think for whatever reason, he didn't want to be a part of the project right now, but his sister had a lot to say. And Evelyn works at Bellevue and has continued to be an advocate for the community and be very involved. We've had the pleasure of having them at different events and Q&As over the last couple of years, and we'll be having them at the Metrograph.
Great. I know you had a question up here, and then I'll go to the back. Okay, go to the back.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, how are you?
My name is Ultra, and I also live in Greenlawn, neighborhood of Williamsburg. I was, like Ariel, blown away by some of the shots.
Is her mic working? I can hardly hear her.
Can you hold the mic closer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was blown away by some of the shots that were so sensitive, and I could have landed these people in jail. And it occurred to me that it was a cry for help, and they were ready to put their lives on the line for this movie. So I thought that was interesting.
Absolutely. When I first saw the film, I just kept on thinking, oh, this is going to end with Tito in jail because of the film, and nobody's going to help him, so this community that he's part of. And it was really interesting because you see the opposite with Evelyn on the street and the fire. It was so poignant. So I totally agree. Up front here?
I was going to say also when Tito's in the correctional facility and he's discussing, it's almost like a confessional, like, I'm going to do this, so if he says it out loud, so speaking to kind of what
absolutely
you said, yeah.
The hope. I think that's as far as it goes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I don't need the mic. I'm 6 inches from you. No, but this was a great project, and I've known about it, but I hadn't actually seen it, and I'm pretty blown away. And I have one question and one comment. The question is, Christopher, do you, or is it someone else who actually, sort of on an ongoing basis, manages this? Because there's a lot of moving parts to this, and it's a big vision, and it's amazing what you've accomplished, much more than I realized. So, yeah, are you who's dedicated to work in this?
Everybody at UnionDocs works on it to some degree, and yeah, it's kind of like pet project. So we have not a huge team, as you know. It's Lucila, who's here, and Sarah Lerner are the main 3 full-time people, and then we have a bunch of part-time folks too. So yeah, we're constantly shepherding it forward with all the other things that we do, and it's yeah, that's how we do it. I don't know what else to say.
At least other questions, but we don't really have time for that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very interested in how just things get done in a collaborative way, because there's a lot of challenges to that. But and then my comment, my observation is, like, it strikes me that even though you have this very digital, interactive, modern template for sharing stories, what really, it always brings me back to the fact that you have this physical space that's so warm and personal. Even like here is like that for me, and UnionDocs is like that for me, and Bronx Documentary Center I've gotten to know, and it's like that. And so, and it kind of reminds me of even what you see in the film. It's like at the end of the day, people want to be together in a way that in the digital age they're craving to have more of. So despite all this modern digital stuff, you've created this very homey space, which I think is very important to what you're trying to do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think some people are going to see Elena, the film preservationist now. So, but, thank you. But yeah.
Absolutely. We still have a couple more questions. We're going to go 5 more minutes. So let's go here. Can you pass her the mic?
Lisa, thank you very much. I came to New York in 1983, and we created an organization of filmmakers, Latino filmmakers, Latino Collaborative around 89 or 90. And since then, I've been trying to watch this movie because it kind of really disappeared. But there is another movie, I don't know if Cynthia remember, about salsa, I think. That is, it's like a time capsule of New York. And I was thinking, I was saying how different New York is. Not only Williamsburg, but New York at large. We lost the Lower East Side, we lost Harlem, we lost, we have lost a lot of things. And also filmmaking, the state of paranoia in which we live today. People wouldn't do this today. People would go out. The police won't allow to shoot them, to record them. The people wouldn't tell anything that they to say because the state police in which we live is a completely different story. So, we have not only, in one project, I went through the website, they sent it to me, is how much that you pay, how much they pay, and how much the kids are paying now. That's just, most likely they pay $200 with Section 8. And then you pay whatever for the same apartment. With
Oh, you mean housing costs? I see.
The housing cost, and it also remind me a little bit of Mr. Weissman film in Jackson High.
Yeah.
So all this thing of a New York that will never come back. It was wonderful. Thank you for bringing the film back. A lot of my generation been waiting for this film forever, and I think it was a better time.
Absolutely. I have to say, one of the things, and if there's any last comment, okay, here.
Yeah. Okay, this is kind of like emotionally charged, so I'm gonna just let it out. And it's directed, I guess, mostly towards Melvin as a resident of the neighborhood. I grew up, I'm much younger. I didn't grow up in the...
Oh, thank you.
I grew up in La Cabaña houses.
Cabaña.
Yep.
Up on Lorimer by Shoals. It's not quite Lopez, but it's around there. And just watching this, the kind of thing that struck me, I think, first was thinking about like our place in society as Latinos. And seeing how, and this kind of goes to your nephew's point, seeing how a lot of this didn't really change, even though the setting is not there for us as much as it used to be. I feel like this, like the marginalized experience of the colonized mindset, it just kind of seems to follow us despite where we are situated, and despite where our communities land. And I don't know, I suppose it was just kind of disheartening seeing this, feeling this now and seeing how this was so many years later, and how perhaps things haven't really changed too much. And I was just wondering if that struck you and how that made you feel. And also, beyond that, I just wanted to ask, because you guys have the platform, because you have the resources, how can we use something like this to promote self-determination and uplift our people? Because I think, if anything, that's what it should be used for.
For me, is the fact that this film exists. Nobody knew my story. Nobody knew where I lived. There is no document that says that South 4th Street existed. And that's why this is really important. Yes, I did feel like a stranger in my own land when you get a lot of people from outside of your neighborhood just coming in and having no interaction with you. And yes, all these things do continue to happen, but the difference is that now I'm an adult and now I see the whole cycle. This cycle is happening to us as it happened to the indigenous people of the United States, like it's happened to others. So it's nothing new. The question is, what do you do? If you know gentrification is coming, then you prepare for it. And that's why this film is really important, to make other places and other people aware that if gentrification is coming to Detroit, then the locals need to get it together, and instead of waiting to buy that one house, everybody should just buy an apartment, because that way you can own something. If not, if you don't own anything, then you're going to be displaced. It's that simple.
Pulling the resources.
Yeah, pulling, yeah,
resources.
And that's really important.
Well, just one comment about self-determination, because when I said I cried the first time I saw the film, exactly. And for me, it was, you know, when I was commissioner for Mayor de Blasio, I have to say, in the media world, I had so many media people that wanted my attention to produce something, to make something, to build something. In terms of the Puerto Rican community, I can't tell you how many times I went to an event and someone tapped my shoulder and said, I have a housing problem, can you help me? I know you're the commissioner of media, but really what I need is I need help with housing. And since you're Puerto Rican, can you help me? I cannot tell you, it still chokes me up. I cannot tell you how many times I turned and I kept on thinking, I'm the media commissioner, but you know what I mean? I have no, you know, I can help you with that, but I will get you I will call you back. Give me your information and I will get them to the right person, So what this did for me was bring up all those conversations on where we are as Puerto Ricans in the city and where we are as Latinos. And my father passed earlier in the year, and where we are, my father always used to say, you have to be the person who determines where you are in your life. And I believe that half the time, but the other half the time, it's like, wait a second, we're part of a system that we need to really critically understand. So it's a much more, I know I'm only given a couple of minutes, it's a much more complicated question, the one that you ask, of how to use, I spent 15 years at POV asking the question, how to use documentary to change circumstance. So how this documentary, what I'm heartened by, what I see in Christopher, which, you know, we don't know each other, we just met, but what I see in UnionDocs, that before, I read a lot about UnionDocs. Similar to Faye, I was like, it's a group in, you know, Williamsburg. When I see who he's gotten to work with him, when I spend 7 hours and I still want more, I'm hungry. I'm like, I want to know her, and I want to know her, and I want to know this person. And I had the question of how many kids are working there, how many Latinos are working there, how many Puerto Ricans are you giving opportunities to? I said, he's on the right path. He's not taking something out of the neighborhood. He is actually preserving something and giving something back. And then when you get somebody like Melvin to call me on a Saturday at 9 o'clock in the morning and to badger me to show up here, he's got some allies that are serious, you know what I mean, from the neighborhood, which I said, hey, coño, espérate, you know what I mean? So that touches my heart, and I can tell you there's certain things I don't show up for, or I said, no, I don't think I want to go to the senators, whatever, you know. this is being taped, like, but here I was like, this is about the community. This is Peggy. This is NYU. This is a different conversation. But it's a complicated question you ask on how to use this film to provoke change. That's an economic change for our people. That's a big question. Yeah. I don't know. I can't answer that.
I'm not sure I can answer it either. I think I love what you both have said, and I think that your comment is so poignant, so useful. And I think the power of the film and also some of the other projects is that they do bring out a lot of emotions and frustrations and anger, and it hasn't just been about nostalgia. It hasn't just been about all of that. And part of why we wanted to try to do this shot-by-shot project wasn't just really for memories. It was really to think about cutting this film up and see what else we could use it for, and can we store new memories inside of this film? Because there's some places where people really disagree with this film, and we wanted to be able to have those voices be a part of it as well. And how can a project like this bring people together? And then I think the very simple, there's a lot of different ways I think the media can be there, but one thing that I think is happening right now in the neighborhood is that there's a return to the name Los Sures, and there's pride in it. And I think we've been a small part of that. We're not the only ones advocating for that. There's a lot of people and a lot of different organizations that are doing that, but I think that's a good thing in the end, because it's, within that you can kind of, I think there's a way people can get organized, and identity can be pursued, and resources can be channeled to the right direction. So that seems like a start for.
I just want to say one thing. It's interesting. When I was just looking up some things for tonight, thinking about tonight, I went on to Wikipedia just to see what Williamsburg, what it says for Williamsburg Wikipedia. And under ethnic communities, the Hasidic Jewish community is named, the Italian American community, but the Latino community is only mentioned in a couple sentences. So just kind of interesting thinking about erasures or whose community within that even gentrified community now is represented, or so somebody got it right to Wikipedia. That entry.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for staying.
Yeah.
There's some food and wine outside if anybody wants to continue.